The game library of the Atari 7800 is probably the least documented on YouTube. Because of that, I've decided it's the perfect console to try to conquer the library of. The library might be small, but these games are undocumented and difficult. Join us as one man tries to beat the Atari 7800 library. Hey guys, this is John here, and this is the first episode of a video series where I'm going to try to beat every game I can find for the 7800. So any games like this that have an ending, I will play through to that ending. Arcade games, I'll play through to every different screen, trying to see every different enemy and everything the game offers. Sports games, I'll try to beat the CPU. At least one time. I might try, multiple difficulties, but I'm not going to force myself to play a really difficult sports game that I'm not good at. Real sports baseball. But I will see these games through to the end. So what better game to start with than Midnight Mutants, the last game released for the Atari 7800 in North America here. It was originally released in 1990. And it was developed by a company called Radioactive Software that has interesting pedigree that we'll talk about a little bit, and developed obviously by Atari. It features Al Lewis on the cover as Grandpa Monster. He's also the main person you're trying to save in this game. The whole adventure is you trying to locate your grandpa and rescue him from the evil Dr. Evil. The game has been described as being Zelda-like. I don't know if it's like Zelda so much, but it is an isometric adventure game. One that the Atari desperately needed. It could have used it a lot sooner in its life, but I'm glad it got released. It's definitely a hidden gem and a unique game for the 7800. So I'm not going to talk too much about the gameplay. I mean, I'll point out some things here and there, but I'd rather let you know some interesting things about the game, about Atari and stuff like that while we play. I record the voiceover after the gameplay because it's too hard for me to talk and play well at the same time. I believe this game took me 3 attempts this time to complete. The game is one that I play just about every October around Halloween time for the last 6 years, I'd say. I try to beat it at least once, so it's kind of a tradition for myself. I didn't have it when I was younger. I became aware of it when I started collecting for Atari back in the late 2000s, early 2010s. So this game, like I said, it was developed by a company called Radioactive Software, and it's credited to a team of just about 7 people, which is pretty small by today's standards, but at the time, I mean, most games were pretty small development teams. The only other game that I know of that Radioactive Software did was the Eliminator Boat Duels for the NES, which is another hidden gem style game. The team that did this game was, as I said, 7 people. It was a programmer by the name of Peter A. Adams. The story was by Tammy Moore. Music and sound by Paul Webb. Art was by Les Pardue. Cover art was Michael Mendheim. And they had special thanks to 2 people, Adam T. Clayton and Richard Robbins. So this was the team that worked on this game in particular. And they went on to have pretty fruitful careers, it looks like. The programmer, Peter A. Adams, has some interesting things in his portfolio here. According to my research, he was also involved in the X-Men Hyperscan game. The Hot Wheels Stunt Track Driver game that I think you got with some Hot Wheels toys at back in the 90s. Wayne Gretzky's NHL Hockey. He did programming on Dragon's Revenge for the Genesis, Zaxxon for the Commodore 64, Yeah, just the eclectic group of games there that he's credited to. So he stayed busy until the 2000s. See, Tammy Moore didn't have much. She did also work on Daydreaming Davy, apparently, as well as WWF WrestleMania Steel Cage Challenge. Paul Webb, who did the music, has quite a few games to his credit. Let's go start at the bottom here. He had also done the music in Fatal Run. He did the music in the NES Monopoly game, a game that I really enjoyed playing with my mom as a child. And it had a memorable soundtrack too. Eliminator Boat Duel. The Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back for, I believe it wasn't NES, or maybe, yeah, NES it looks like. I thought maybe it was Famicom exclusive. But no, NES, WWF WrestleMania Steel Cage Challenge, WWF Super WrestleMania, Daydreamin' Davy, the Super Star Wars Trilogy, WWF Royal Rumble, WWF Rage in the Cage, Mortal Kombat 2, the SNES version. He was a musical support person. Doom for the SNES, the Sega Saturn port of Space Jam, NFL Blitz 2000 for the Dreamcast, State of Emergency for Windows back in the 2000s, several licensed games. But one thing that was interesting on Paul Webb's history here, as I fight the skeletal ram head, these bosses are nuts in this game. I love how they're huge and take up the whole screen. But interesting thing about Paul Webb's credit here is he's credited on Among the Sleep. At first I thought, like, wow, okay, he worked on the music for that, but it says that he was credited as a backer, which is still interesting. Outside of that, again, one other person I want to point out is the Michael Mendheim, who did the box art for the box design for the game. He also did the box design for Fester's Quest. And if you look at the two games combined, you kind of see the similar style. They both have the main character, Midnight Mutants, obviously having Al Lewis on the front, and Fester's Quest having the animated Fester. But he also worked on Mutant League Hockey, Mutant League Football, the Army Men games, many of the Army Men games, Def Jam Icon, just a lot of stuff that he did design and production for. So the team that made this game went on to do more things in the industry, and as they should, because this game was very well done, especially for an adventure game on the 7800. So I felt like it was worth giving those guys a shout out. According to my research, that's the team that worked on the game, and they, I'm sure, don't get a lot of credit or recognition for this game. But like I said, Radioactive Software, I don't believe stuck around much longer. It looks like they did a lot of work with Sculptured Software, which was another development house that did a lot of late 7800 games. So I don't know if they were offshoot or a sister company or what have you, but they seem to work together quite a bit. So here in Midnight Mutants, it's a game that you can get lost in pretty easily if you don't know what you're doing. I'd recommend looking up a guide if you want to play through it and kind of get the feel for where to start. And that way you at least have an idea of what you're supposed to do. You go to the mansion first to get the knife. You need the knife. It's technically a weapon, but it's not a very good one. You can kill the odd bat that flies in front of you. But the knife lets you get into the church that's next to the starting screen. You got to get into the church to get the cross, which will protect your blood purity against bats and several other enemies. So in this game, you have your health meter and your blood purity level. Both are pretty much the same thing, but they get affected differently by different enemies. And you have to keep both of them high. So you have red potions for blood purity, blue potions for health. you gotta keep an eye on both of them. There's many times where my health would be fine, but I would die because I forgot to keep an eye on my blood purity level. So you get the knife, the cross. I always like to get the lantern after that. It lights up the caves that you go to later. You go to the forest to pick up the axe, which is the first weapon that actually damages your opponents. And then you work your way back to the mansion here where I'm at. The mansion, you spend probably more time in the mansion and the caves than anywhere else. The game world has a lot of variety, again, especially for a 7800 game. When people think of these games, I think they get confused with 2600. A lot of people think of the arcade games that, again, the 7800 did a lot of arcade games very well, but I've noticed when I bring up the 7800 to people, they think 2600, and the 7800 was more in line with the NES and could do this style of game very well, which has been shown more and more today in the homebrew community, which is awesome. We love to see all the action platformer games that have been done recently. Bentley Bear, Night Guy, those sort of things. 7800 needed more of those to compete back in the day, but unfortunately wasn't able to get them due to licensing issues and just really not trying that hard on the end of the owners there. So here, every now and then, Grandpa Monster will pop up on your screen and he'll give you some story bits about the game. And they're always kind of fun and weird and interesting, and it really helps give this game a ton of personality. This is also the menu where you access your items here. So you can see I just picked up the crypt key, which lets you enter the crypt and fight the evil optometrist. So again, it kind of has a silly, spooky Halloween mood. But as a kid, Halloween I was obsessed with it. It was my favorite holiday, favorite time of year. So I would have went nuts for this game. This is everything I love, with pumpkins and bats and zombies and spooky mansions and walking through haunted forests and stuff. So here we made our way into the basement. He told you of a scientist that developed a blaster to take care of these zombies that he unveiled. And he got his head ripped off before he could use the blaster. So kind of gives you a hint that the blaster should still be down here. You have to clear out all the enemies, and you'll hear a noise like that. And there's the blaster. It doesn't look like much, just like a splatter of mustard. But it's actually one of the strongest weapons in the game, but it's not the strongest weapon in the game. So you will be told that the blaster is like the top thing to get, but there's a super blaster that is hidden in the caves here. And if you want to beat this game, I recommend getting the super blaster. The caves can be confusing. As you can see, I'm kind of a little bit lost here, but I find my way fairly quickly to this hallway. The caves are blue, gray, and this reddish orange hue here. It kind of helps you get your bearings as to where you're at. But what you want to do is find this hallway here and then clear out of all the enemies, which can be pretty tough because these green things, whatever they are, that shoot pumpkins, they are among the toughest enemies in the game. But if you clear these guys out, you get the super blaster, which is stronger than the blaster and it fires a lot faster. So this is by far the best weapon in the game, and the one that you'll want to get if you want to have a good chance at beating the final boss. So after this, there is one more area to explore in these caves here, and that is the hidden haunted pirate ship. So most of the areas you get to from the orange hue part of the cave. You see I went to the gray part, which leads you to the exit. You want to find the blue part right here that takes you to the pirate ship. This part can easily be skipped. I guess you don't necessarily have to go to the pirate ship, but for completion's sake, I always like to go, and it does give you access to eventually a very valuable item. So it's nice to have the super blaster here. Without it, it's much tougher to get through these narrow hallways and get past these green guys. You go through this cave to a stairwell. You notice that a lot of the zombies have essentially the same body but different heads. You got the bobbing head zombies, the long neck zombies, the headless zombies. Just kind of funny and cool to see how they recycled some of the sprites there. Probably to save on cartridge space and time, more than likely. But that was the pirate ship right there, and we got a necklace off of the pirate ship. The necklace, for a while I didn't know what it did. Apparently it increases your defense, which is fine. I don't know if it actually helps with your defense or not, but it does have another important secondary ability that lets you walk over small bodies of water. And if you remember, right at the start of the game, there is a square that is surrounded by water with a heart in the middle that you can't get to. So if you take the necklace there and equip it, you can get that heart, which is something that I didn't know you could do for a long time. And I think I pretty sure I've beaten this game before without getting the heart. So again, you could skip over that stuff pretty easily. I usually die a lot in the caves. I've seen my game end many times here because the enemies are difficult and it's easy to get turned around. Now, if you really know the area, you could find your way back out to the forest and get to the heart a lot quicker. But I never really found a reliable way to get back to the forest and the cabin in the woods. So I usually just go back this way because I have this pretty well memorized. So as we take care of these, I believe they're werewolf enemies, a little bit about this series. I'm going to play through every game I can find for the 7800. And the challenge is to beat as many as I can. I'm going to try to beat all of them that are beatable. It's something that I haven't done. I haven't beat a lot of 7800 games. I played all of them, but actually sitting down to complete them is something that I don't think many people do. I don't think a lot of people have seen these 7800 games to the end. So I thought it'd be interesting and fun to play through them. And here I'll show you equip the necklace, and there, it says now your blood will never falter. So you don't have to watch your blood meter anymore. But I think a lot of people kind of ignore the 7800 library, and I understand, like the console itself, unless you mod it, it only hooks up through RF, which is something that isn't convenient for today's televisions and game systems. But it is fairly easy to mod and to put a RCA jack on there. And it looks pretty good on a good CRT with RCA hookups, or even my sister plays hers on a HD TV with the RCA hookups, and it looks really clean, if not a little bit too soft. But there is ways, if you want to play them today, and you can find 7800s pre-modded for a decent price on eBay. So I recommend, if you have any interest in playing these games, to go that route. Or if you want, look into the new VCS console that's been re-releasing 7800 games for a few dollars each, which, with the way that video games are going up in price, is pretty convenient. So the whole story about this boss is really silly. It's a optometrist that kept eyeballs and blood, and I guess his vision went, so he put in a pair of eyeballs in his head, but they were kept in tainted blood. And now he's a skeleton's head that spits eyeballs at people that go into his crypt. And he's supposed to move back and forth the whole time, but he kind of glitched out here, so all the better for us, I suppose. And there you go. 2 out of 3 bosses complete. So if you know me or you've been following me for a little bit, which I doubt any of you have, I work with Cousin Vinny over at Atari 7800forever.com, where we review or try to review every 7800 game, homebrew, hack, retail game that has come out. Cousin Vinny, he reviewed this game in particular. He gave it a 4.5 out of 5. He really liked the humor of the game, which, as I said, it's pretty light on its themes, and especially with Grandpa popping up and saying different funny phrases. He liked the approachable in-game menus, so like the weapon menus and talking to Grandpa and getting different things from him. He seemed to really enjoy. And then he cited the excellent boss battles, which the boss battles do stick out for really for any game of the time, not just 7800, but there wasn't too many games that had such large full-screen bosses that you could fight. Even if they don't animate a whole lot, they're still pretty neat to look at, something different from a lot of other games. So in this game, there is a few areas that you don't have to visit that is a shame. I feel like maybe they were intending on fleshing out some of these areas a little more. Like in Zelda, you have to visit essentially every area on the map, where here there's a couple areas that you can just straight up bypass. This screen's cool. It said radioactive on it, so that's kind of the developers giving themselves a nod. Because as I said, even at this time in Atari, under different management, still seemed like giving developers credit. Well, they allowed it more on the intro screens and whatnot. It still wasn't a priority for them, so people were still slipping in their names anywhere they could. So here, this screen, you can get to this part at any time, but you need a strong weapon to kill those enemies. I don't think the axes could even take care of them, because you need to wipe them out to get to this hidden screen. And again, some of these things are just really cryptic and difficult to figure out. But I think if you made it this far, going to that screen and killing all the enemies is probably something you would eventually try. So on this screen, I like to wipe out all these enemies in this little swirl here. It can be hard because of how narrow the paths is to get your targeting correct, but it's still doable. And you get a potion here, which you'll need. So I make sure to drink the one I'm holding so that I don't just lose the new one that you pick up. You can only hold one of each potion at a time, so you gotta make sure you have room. And here is the evil, sinister Dr. Evil, and he kind of just looks like Count Dracula to me, maybe minus the vampire teeth, but his mouth is closed. And he attacks you by shooting bugs out of his ears, which is it's definitely a choice. And you have to shoot him in the ear. You can see his life bar is massive compared to either of the other bosses you fought, as it should be. But without the super blaster here, this fight would take forever. And if you'll notice, the difficulty subtly increases as you get more hits on him. The abundance of bugs coming out of his ears increases, and it just makes for a really difficult encounter, because those bugs, they push you left and right between the screen here. and it makes it hard to keep on your target. So I'd recommend having the super blaster and making sure that you have a spare potion on hand. And I think if you don't have the heart, I think they drain your blood purity too. So you'll either want to have the heart or at least a blood purity potion as well. But this is the whole fight, and we're actually faring really well against them, but the bugs are going to come out a lot faster and a lot larger quantity here. So among the other games for the 7800 that I will be playing and beating here soon, Tower Toppler is a game that I've been trying to beat for, probably 13, 14 years now. And I can make it pretty far, but I can't wait to complete that one and show it to you guys. Double Dragon's a game that I beat a few times, and it's a game I can't beat as easily as I would like. I can get to the boss pretty easily, which is Machine Gun Willie, but he drains your health like crazy, so I'm hoping I can beat that one pretty early on in this video series for you. A few other games, there's a few I know I can beat. I want to feature some homebrews on here. You can really use these. You can mute me and use them as a guide on how to beat these games, or you can just follow my journey. And here we beat Dr. Evil. So that should be the end of the game, but there is a little bit more that you have to do. And again, it's not really spelled out to you, but if you paid attention to some things, you might get it. So we just picked something up there. If you didn't notice, if it happened too quickly, we picked up a pumpkin. So now we gotta figure out what to do with the pumpkin. And again, I don't think Grandpa tells you. You just kind of gotta follow the hints and cues as to what the adventure is about and some of the areas you've already seen. Excuse me. So again, some more games I know I can beat. The Dragons Trilogy, Dragon's Cash, which isn't beatable. That's a puzzle type game like Tetris or Bejeweled. But Dragon's Descent is like an adventure style game, and Dragon's Havoc is a fun little side-scrolling shooter. So I will be beating those soon, I hope. I know those are games I can complete, but then I'll start getting into a lot of games that I can't beat, and I'm really worried about games like Tank Command and Water Ski because they're so poorly programmed. I don't know how I'm gonna finish those games, but we'll see. That's the objective of this channel and this series, is to get through all these games. So we'll have to figure out a way here. We'll also get, like I said, the arcade games will show off all the screens, so I can't wait to show off the Donkey Kong ports and the Donkey Kong homebrew. They're all very well done for the console, so it's something that I enjoy playing on here. Galaga and the newly released Galaxian. Scrapyard Dog is a game that I haven't beat yet. I have made it to the end, but I haven't beaten, I guess, what you would call the final boss. So that's another one that I'm kind of worried about. But we'll do them eventually, and if you guys would rather, I can give commentary as I play, or I can continue doing the voiceovers. Just let me know down in the comments if you liked it, or if I talk too much or not enough, or ramble or whatever. Just give me some feedback, because we're just starting this out and it's going to be a fun adventure. So here's a kind of a fun area on the map, and I don't think you have to clear the enemies, but I like to. And you have this flashing pumpkin here. So So you equip it, and then you have to press the button next to that pumpkin. The screen glitches out, and there's Grandpa Monster himself, Al Lewis. Copyright 1990 Atari Corp. And he says awesome. And then you gotta love this early 90s lingo. Oh, what a relief, you saved me. And you wasted the wicked Dr. Evil. Very rad. Now I can get back to raising pumpkins. By the way, what took you so long? Hope you guys enjoyed that game. Join me next time. We'll be playing through another great 7800 game, trying to beat the whole library. And it should be difficult, fun, and hopefully something you want to see. So this is John, aka Silverback, signing out. Later.